Mike Milbury joins us from north of the border, the bubble up in Toronto for NBC Sports, where he's covering the NHL. So, Mike, what's life been like for you as far as being quarantined?
I arrived here on Sunday night. I checked into my hotel room and I have not left that 18 by 12-foot area since then. And I can't get out until Saturday morning. My highlight of the day is a nurse and a nurse practitioner come in and they swab my nose, each nostril for 15 seconds with a Q-tip for testing results, and they leave. And then I'm back to doing whatever I'm doing. Fortunately, there've been some preseason games to watch, and that's been fun. I'm doing some homework on games that I'm going to call up here, but I'm anxious to get out. You know, I'm not even in the bubble. I'm in the bubble within a bubble. And so I'm anxious to get out and see what the rest of the boys out there are seeing. But food's been good from room service, so I can't complain. But tough to get your exercise by running in place in a like 3x5 area. It's really mind-boggling. But fortunately, just one more day.
If you could put yourself in a player's shoes, how are they handling it? And, you were young once. How are they going to remain disciplined so they don't go out of the bubble?
Oh, they can't. They can't. I think they know now. I think the rules have been set down. The areas are so well defined. The baseball experience maybe set up some big red flags for these players. Some of them came here not really happy about having to come here, I'm sure, but they get paid for a living to play hockey, and they get now a chance to earn their dream, and that's to win a Stanley Cup. Some of these guys, got lucky and got a second chance to be in the playoffs. Otherwise, the teams like Montreal wouldn't have this chance. So they have to be grateful for it. From what I've seen on the exhibition games, there's been a pretty good pace, some sloppiness to it at times, but you can see there's a real sense of urgency to the games, and that's just in the preseason stuff. So I think it'll really ratchet up on the weekend.
Now, the Bruins are favored to win the East, but from what I understand, you're high on the Capitals.
I think the Capitals are now flying underneath the radar. From what I can gather, and this is hardly firsthand information, I guess Ovechkin really dedicated himself to getting in great shape during the pause. And, if you watched the game last night, he was his usual brilliant self and made an unbelievable pass to Kuznetsov on one goal, as well as scoring himself. So this is a deep team. This is an experienced team. And Holtby's got to be on top of it, but they have to be considered a real threat. Tampa Bay Lightning, Braden Point, and Kucherov put on a show in their preseason game without Hedman, without Stamkos. They were dominating over Florida. So it's those two teams, and don't forget the Pittsburgh Penguins. Jake Gensel back into the lineup, healthy. Brian Dumoulin healthy. Little controversy in goal there, but there's no shortage of suitors to come out of the Eastern Conference. So it will not be a cakewalk for the Bruins.
What about Tuukka? Are you concerned? Does he have something to prove?
Well, I'm a Tuukka fan, and I've been a Tuukka fan for a long time. But I saw his interview with Catherine Tappan, and it was like, geez, I wish he had a PR guy that could sit in his living room and say, don't go that way, Tuukka, because he said something like, I've been changing diapers for like 4 months. I have hardly thought about hockey. I just want to get my rhythm and have some fun. That's why he steps in it with Boston fans, because they want to hear somebody say something about winning a Stanley Cup and how dedicated he was to getting ready. Like, I think he's a competitive son of a gun once he puts on the pads, but he sometimes seems more cavalier than you'd think. But I'm a fan, and I think he'll be okay. He needs to be better than okay for them to win a Stanley Cup, but it'll be interesting to see his progress.
I know, Mike, you want to say the right thing for the Boston's fans, but isn't that beneficial to a goalie to be able to kind of put it behind you? Because it doesn't seem to bug him, and that's good for a goaltender, isn't it?
To be unflappable at times, but you know, if you remember Tim Thomas, if you remember Jerry Cheevers, and, you know, those guys were overtly competitive. Excuse me. In the case of Tuukka, sometimes he seems just kind of laid back and set back, and it just, you know, maybe that is good in some ways. He's had a terrific year. He's won more games than any other goalie, but he sends out mixed messages verbally sometimes, and I think that becomes a problem because people start to get on him, you know, as soon as he makes a false move. And I don't think any team, any goaltender, any person needs that kind of scrutiny, especially when most of the time you've done a hell of a job.
David Pastrnak is fit to play. Your thoughts on what we can expect from him?
Well, I don't know what the chucklehead was up to, but, you know, I mean, he set his team back. He set himself back. I don't know if he was skating at all during this time off. The good news is he's going to get in an exhibition game. He's going to get in these round robin games that aren't as important as they would have been if home ice had been involved. I still believe home ice, despite last year's final, can be a positive factor. But he's got some time to get himself in shape. And he's a young guy with great talent. And, you know, I don't think he's in the shape he should be if he'd been skating with his team, but I don't think it's going to take him more than a couple of weeks to get there.
If you were his coach, how would you handle him?
You know what? You can't take away his joy of living. You have to work with him on becoming the ultimate professional. I mean, he's got plenty of guys around him that he can look at. Chara, Bergeron, Marchand now, even though he gets himself in trouble once in a while, he still comes to the gym and works out and plays hard. You know that you got all those guys that have been the consummate professionals for a long time. You have to use those guys as an example, and they have to be leaders in the locker room for Pastrnak. I mean, I can't imagine Bergie's not going to have a little chat with Pasta, you know, or hasn't had one already about, like, what are you doing? We're trying to win a cup here, and we got an opportunity, and you're doing whatever you're doing that causes you to be quarantined. That's selfishness. Get the selfishness out of your game on and off the ice, and then you got yourself something pretty special. It's pretty special already.
All right, Mike, thanks a lot. Stay safe, my friend. Of course, Mike will be covering the Bruins and the rest of the NHL for NBC Sports and NBC Sports Network.